Hey everyone, Dan here. We are about a half hour after market close on Monday, June 28th. We're going to do that daily thing and take a look at SoFi. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also feel free to comment below with your own thoughts, ideas, questions, tickers you'd like to see me cover, what have you. Okay, so I guess, start by saying I put out a midday video on SoFi today. It was before it had this big run up, so interesting timing. And in there, I call out a bunch of questions in the delivery and the process by which information is communicated to the public from the SEC and whoever is drafting documents that are posted by the SEC, and some things that might be able to be done that seem very practical to me that would go a long way with helping the retail investor make smart decisions, which apparently is a goal that a lot of these places have, and seem pretty adoptable in my opinion. So I'll link that in the description below. Have a look if you want, but it's all about the lockup period and documentation, stuff like that. So I'm not going to get deep into it in this video. I spent 20 minutes on it earlier today. So wild day today. 56 almost million volume versus an average volume of less than 5 million. So, and just a wild dip, recover, dip, big recover. So you see there, it almost touched $20. It's doing a pretty good job of tending to the chart that's been holding up well for us for a few weeks now. So it, solidified around this 1807 support zone that we had identified, tried to make a run up to that 1872, got pushed down, didn't need the 1750 support to the penny, but I mean 1766 is pretty close, and then immediately regained support there. It was right in this area that I was making the video this afternoon, and when I was making that, I said the next big thing that SoFi needs to do if it's going to have a bullish move is establish over this white box, because if you see, this white box shows all of this previous topping out here and stretches all the way back to the day before. So being that it had topped out there and there, oh well, it wasn't there yet, but it had topped out there and here, at this point I said, it needs support over this white box. That's the most important thing in order to continue to make a bullish run here. And that's exactly what it did just about, I guess, 2 hours or so after I was making the video. So interesting kind of turn of events. Or is that 4 hours? No, it's 2 hours. Okay, doesn't matter. But, right now it's also having a good showing in the after hours, up almost 0.5%, but anything that continues to be green after this wild run up today that nearly tapped $20 again is obviously very, very welcomed. It's been a rough go the last few days, still trying to unpack much of what's going on. That's what the video from earlier today was on, saying what's going on with this lockup situation. I think a lot of it is fear-based, whether or not the lockup actually ended today and there were shares that were available to be sold onto the marketplace. If you go back several weeks in my video, my point there was I've been a part of a startup at a very early stage, well, years and years and years and years and years before it ever went public. And I know the mindset of those people that gather those shares early on. There's a big difference between the founders and the founding team and employees, even, employee number 50. I don't begrudge employee number 50 for selling out quickly and taking the profit that they feel, was part of the reason why they joined the startup to begin with. But I also know that founding teams often tend to keep their shares intact. They aren't out there selling, at least not in huge blocks, nonetheless. And they are the predominant owners of those shares that are locked up. Now, this has the added, issue with it having come the SPAC route, which is not the case for the startup that I was a part of that then went public. But you know, that's what we talked about earlier on, was it would be interesting to sort of be able to clearly understand the difference between the SPAC investors and what they're looking for, what their timelines are, versus then the employees, the founders, the directors, the management team, the board, the investors, that sort of thing. But you see, I'm already sucking myself into it. Look at that video if you want sort of my editorializing on that. I think there'll be more editorializing to go. Obviously, I feel like I still have more to say about it, but I also need some space and some distance from the way that this whole thing has played out in order to sort of crystallize my thoughts and sort of like get it out in a like solidly communicative fashion. In terms of the indicators, where we stand at this point after the nice run that we've had, you know, sitting pretty high on the RSI. It did make a nice run from right about here, being oversold, though these indicators often get pretty questionable to me when they're in the after hours of the pre-market, especially if the volume is low. So we could say, you know, here, if you had caught this dip during market hours into oversold 28 on the RSI, and if you had held it to overbought, you know, you would have made a nice run from, you know, like say $18 up to close to 20 in a pretty brief span of time. So I would keep a strong eye on the RSI. It seems to be tracking pretty solidly so far. On the MACD, as you can imagine, we're resting up, perched up very high. The nice thing to see is we're already crossed over into a bearish movement, and so the opportunity, you know, once you're already in a formation, a bullish or a bearish formation, then what you have the potential for is the crossover and the trend reversal. And so right now we're sitting high. I think we could come down and even sit on this price point a little bit and maybe give the MACDs a little bit of room to breathe. So 1925, if it comes down there, you know, it could bring it down a bit more on the histogram and stretch that bearish momentum, yeah, that's right, a little bit, bring the MACD and signal line down a little bit, give it additional room to run when it does bounce and cross over. You know, I don't know if this run will continue to tomorrow, but, you know, the extent to which we can get support at that 20, that was my bounce zone before, as was this. You know, these were previous bounce zones that we were looking at before all the selling off occurred. And those, you know, would still be really impactful if we could stretch ourselves up there in the coming day or days. But really, really positive day. It was looking pretty challenging when I was making the video earlier today. But overall, you know, it's just been a bit of a frustrating little corner of the market that SoFi has been in, with all of the obfuscation and opaqueness around the process and the documentation, and then the sort of like freeze out in terms of like how visible the data is at this point. You know, there's still a bunch of sites indicating that like the data is just not there to calculate short interest, to calculate accurately the percentage of the float being shorted, the fails to deliver that we're waiting for from the first half of June. All of that stuff really doesn't help being able to figure out what's going on. And, you know, there's definitely a slew of people that are shouting about, you know, don't claim that every stock is shorted. And I agree with that, but that's not what's happening here. This isn't me running in and claiming yet another stock is shorted. This was always the case from IPOE from months and months and months ago when we were tracking it. And then that's why we started to track it daily, was because we saw some of these shifts in the motion that we were looking at as we were looking for an initial squeeze back in the SPAC days. So, you know, there's, I don't have to explain it to you. You understand, but just know you will get some of that pushback. If we flip over here, I got this tweet this morning, and because I have I have the Thinkorswim platform, but I rarely use it. I use the Webull charting, you know, platform, and I also have TD Ameritrade or Thinkorswim, the web version. I looked at both. I couldn't find this. This obviously looks like it's taken from a mobile device. I didn't look on there, but I could, because I wanted to confirm this short interest of 148.13% as of 6/15. So that would be an interesting sort of thing to infuse into the data, you know, things that we've been looking for to get clarity on, the thing I was just talking about. So someone tweeted this to me, and they didn't even question the 148's like if that was real or if that was like a glitch or something, or if it was a typo, just because there aren't other places that are reporting it currently, including Ortex, which I can show you in a minute. But they were saying, how can this happen? How can it be over 100% of the float being shorted? And I said that the sort of like in quotes legitimate reason that or way that could happen is that these shares are just being shorted multiple times. So I'm a short seller and I get lent a share. That share was actually short sold to the person who bought it. So that person bought a short sold share, and now I'm buying that same I'm borrowing it to sell it again. So that share is getting sold twice. So right there, so you just flood the market. But that's the whole thing. Whether it's, again, quote unquote legitimate short selling, which is what I just described, and or naked short selling, it distorts profoundly the amount of supply of the shares of stock in the marketplace. And it says, hey, there's all of these shares available to be bought. Who wants to buy them? And then everyone's like, well, geez, why is everyone dumping all of these shares that they want to get rid of onto the market? They're not. There's shares that are being short sold multiple times. They're shares that may or may not exist that are going to end up on a fails to deliver list that are then going to age out into 30 days in the future, and all of these like tricks that happen. And so, there's a, again, in quotes, legit way that it can happen, and there's several illegitimate ways that it can happen, but it can definitely happen. I'll pop on the app on my phone. It just occurred to me as I was looking at it now. I was trying. I was like, I got to make this video. So I closed out the desktop app. But I'll look at my phone to double check and see if it still says that. But interesting find. So Friday, we ended up with 22.36 per short volume for the day on that huge volume day, that inexplicably red day. But a bunch of folks were being told that the lockup period has ended today, and you can look at my last video if you want my opinions on that. But the day before, this still sits out there and just nobody really addresses it. People are like talking about every person wants to say that every stock is being shorted into oblivion now, and so on and so forth. Well, you go find me a bunch of other stocks that have recent days of 45 plus short volume ratio. It's, good luck. You might find some, but guess what? They're at least showing up on the most highly or heavily shorted stocks list, and SoFi isn't yet. And I think it's largely because there's this like information blackout where things still just aren't being calculated and provided. And so, with that, with us sort of like sitting in the dark at this point to a large degree, that's just what it is. I mean, if you come over here, we can look at Yahoo. June 15th, here's the shares short ratio, short percentage of float, not available. Why? I guess because some of the data is still getting calculated, because the data is still coming in. I don't know. This has data provided by Morningstar. Okay. So, but what's going on is still largely in the dark. There is this site that I found, stockanalysis.com, that is showing something that I had seen elsewhere as well, but I don't believe for a minute, or I think it's probably quite questionable how this is being calculated. Short percentage of shares out, 3.54. That's not even of the float. That's of the shares out. So, I I feel weird saying like I just don't believe it, but that's just the case. I think as we get more info, we can dissect things more. Let's refresh this again. This feed from Interactive Brokers continues to be broken, unfortunately. Yeah, we're still not there. So we don't know the availability that exists for Interactive Brokers. We don't know what the fee is currently through there. And then in terms of what Ortex has to offer, I can refresh this just to see, but they're also not able to get any data going on the short side of things, which has been unfortunate. You see here they're bringing in also short percentage of free float, 4.16, that they're pulling in from the June 15th reporting date, but they're not estimating anything. you know, as you can see across the board here. So still waiting for those things to come in, and I don't blame Ortex or like Yahoo or anything like that, or Morningstar. But, you know, whatever is preventing the data from coming in, you know, we need these things to have a clearer picture before we start saying it is this, it is not that. But certainly there's more to the eye than there's more happening than what we see. I don't know what that saying is, but but you know, I'm still interested in continuing to uncover what's going on here, and we will get there. But it's a lot to do to just keep up with the price action and keep our price points in mind and our sort of like technical analysis and figure out just what the stock is doing. Plus all this, like, it feels like there's both an immense amount of data to sift through to try to figure out what's going on, but also that there's a bunch of things that we just can't get at. So it's this weird mix of over availability, not enough time to get through everything and sort of stitch it together, but then also under availability where we're, you know, coming to just bumps in the road like this and like this, you know. So anyway, from a chart side of things, really good day today. Good job, SoFi. Nice to see that you brought the volume for the entire day, and that so much of it in the afternoon was spent with heavy, big buy volume. Can't wait to see what's you know, the day looks like as we unpack a bunch of the data. This is from today. Apparently, still large scale orders coming in the negative. So that just, you know, may say that's, if you look at, you know, small and medium. That was where it was all at. Huge bumps. 28% buy on the medium size order, 22% sell on the medium side, 26% buy on the small side, 19% sell or outflow on the small side. So interesting. If we look at the volume analysis here, I mean, big sells coming in as the price stretched down to 18 and people were just sort of like unloading, or sellers were selling, if you catch my drift. But yeah, nothing tremendously helpful from this, to be honest. There is a whole bunch of the pack who's just kind of sitting it out. If you notice, it's interesting. You know, big win on the buy side, 3 million over the sell side, but, you know, keeping pace with the sells really is the neutral group that's just kind of holding. And I can just tell you anecdotally, I get a ton of messages about people who are like, I'll take these dips because I'm in this for the long haul. This is going to be one of the biggest companies in the world in the coming years or decades, and I want these cheap shares. So I understand that side of things, but let's not lose sight of, like, there's ways that get us cheap shares that are completely irresponsible and unethical, not by us who are buying it, but by whomever is manipulating, distorting things to make it appear as though the stock price in the open market is valued at X. Okay, I gotta get off this soapbox. I gotta move on and make the next video. So I appreciate you watching this one. There's some links in the description below. If you want to check those out, I would appreciate it. And share these videos if you can. Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, wherever you share stock stuff. I definitely appreciate that a ton. All right, be patient with me in the comments. I'll do my best to get to them as I can. And I will see you in the next video.